Welcome to the Utah Governor's Mansion, also known as the Kearns Mansion. My name is Emma Kate Cox, and I am very lucky to live here with my family. A lot has happened in this home over 120 years, and lots of folks have lived here, including a mischievous pair of monkeys. But before I tell you about those rascals, let me show you around and tell you a little bit about this magnificent home and the people who built it in 1902. This story began with some hard work, brains, and some crazy luck. Born in Canada, Thomas Kearns moved with his farming family to Nebraska when he was very young. Then he left home at the age of 17, drawn to the West by its frequent silver and gold strikes and the lure of fortune. He dug tunnels in Park City's Ontario mine for 6.5 years and spent his off hours studying geology. When he spotted a vein of ore heading toward a neighboring property, he joined forces with David Keith and John Judge to lease the mineral rights. Eventually, the three partners formed the Silver King Mining Company, one of the greatest silver and lead mines in the world. In 10 years, they earned $10 million. That's $325 million in today's money. When Thomas Kearns discovered a silver fortune in 1890, he raced down the hill in Park City, Utah, and proposed to his girlfriend, Jenny Judge, a local seamstress whom he had courted for 3 years. Next, he traveled to Nebraska to pay off his parents' home and farm. Then he and his new bride, Jenny, began doing good, building an orphanage and helping to fund the Cathedral of the Madeleine on South Temple, both in Salt Lake City. Finally, they built this beautiful home where they could raise their family. In 1901, Thomas Kearns traveled to Washington, D.C. to serve as a U.S. Senator, while Jenny traveled with their 3 children, Edmund, Thomas, and Helen, to Europe. During her visit, she purchased elegant furnishings for the home: paintings, fireplace mantels, and Persian rugs. Fortunately, with the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad 30 years earlier, made furnishing the home with global goods possible. Everything you see, from floor to ceiling, was handcrafted by talented artisans, many from Europe. The mosaic floor of Italian and African marble was hand-chipped and hand-laid. The French oak paneling was hand-carved, and the ornate walls were hand-painted. Karl M. Neuhausen, a famous German architect, designed the lavish 3-story home in the French chateauesque style. Built to last, the home was constructed of Sanpete County limestone and locally sourced granite. It cost $250,000 to construct and $100,000 to furnish. The mansion originally had 32 rooms, 4 baths, 10 fireplaces, a bowling alley, a billiard room, and 3 secret vaults, one each for silver, jewelry, and wine. This type of expensive architecture, made to look like a European castle, was popular from 1880 to 1910. It may look like a museum, but it was truly a home. 3 children and later 3 cousins lived and played here. They slid down the banisters and played midnight football with a sandbag, the staircase doubling as a playing field. The family hosted Christmas parties for St. Anne's orphans, Easter egg hunts, and roller skating events in the ballroom. I especially like the French parlor with its silk sofas and lace curtains. Jenny Kearns purchased a chandelier and beautiful painting in France to complete this room. Adults used to gather here before and after dinner to gossip and talk about politics. Senator Kearns' library is full of Utah treasures like baskets from modern Navajo artists, furnishings with bee and beehive patterns, and paintings of local landmarks. The big game hat rack was a gift from President Roosevelt during his 1903 visit. Like Kearns, he enjoyed hunting and the outdoors. The two became friends when Senator Kearns served in the U.S. Senate. Senator Kearns' interests didn't just lie in mining and politics. After the Salt Lake Tribune criticized his election to the Senate, he decided to buy the newspaper to control the bad press. He also became involved in banking, building, and expanding the railroad to Los Angeles. The dining room was perfect for entertaining. With walls of Russian mahogany and ceiling of Dutch metal, the room provided a rich, warm welcome to the guests. Jenny Kearns hosted numerous dinner parties, inviting all kinds of people: miners, politicians, and cardinals. She bought the fireplace and accompanying boar spit from Europe. If you look inside the fireplace, you can see an image of Apollo and his chariot. It is said when the flame flickers in the fireplace, the horse's hooves look like they are moving. Mythological figures can be found throughout the mansion. If you look into the grand hall, you can see Neptune's head carved above the mantel. But I think his bushy mustache also makes him look a bit like Thomas Kearns. When President Roosevelt visited Salt Lake City in 1903, he announced plans for a new battleship, the USS Utah. It was customary for the state to purchase a set of silver for the officers' quarters. The state's school children raised the $2,277.24 needed. Fortunately, when the ship was decommissioned in 1931, the silver was returned to Utah. 10 years later, the USS Utah was bombed in Pearl Harbor, and it now rests at the bottom of the harbor. The silver service is still used for official functions today. We are now leaving the public area of the home and entering the private area. As we move into the Butlers Pantry, you will notice how simple it is compared to the elaborate rooms meant for the public. The tile floor and cupboards are original. Note the radiator with the ingenious built-in warming oven. The home was warmed from a coal-fired boiler system, which was known to use up to a ton of coal per day during the winter. Jenny had a full staff, but she continued to enjoy sewing and baking. Children throughout the neighborhood were welcome to her bottomless cookie jar. But when she wanted to keep goodies safe for a dinner party, she would hide them in the silver vault. The building was wired for electricity, making it high-tech for its time. The call box helped the family signal the staff when they needed assistance in over the 16,000 square foot home. Among the rooms listed is one that says bowling alley. Wanting to provide entertainment for the family, Thomas Kearns had a 2-lane alley installed in the basement. At times, he proved to be impulsive. For example, during a trip to South America, he picked up some souvenirs for the family. Remember I mentioned a pair of monkeys? Those were the souvenirs that Thomas Kearns brought home. Patient Jenny Kearns asked her husband where he planned on keeping them. He indicated that the bowling alley would be a fine place to house them. However, after the bored monkeys unscrewed all the light bulbs, smashed them on the floor below, and pulled out the ceiling insulation, Mrs. Kearns suggested donating them to the zoo. I wish the home's bowling alley was still here today, but sadly it was removed about 60 years ago. The informal dining room, another private portion of the house, was where the Kearns family began their day. Here they ate breakfast together while Thomas Kearns read his newspaper. The magnificent chandelier made from the Kearns silver mine served as a reminder of how their wealth was created. Tragedy struck the family in 1918 when an automobile hit Senator Kearns as he was stepping off a streetcar. He died at home a few days later at the age of 56. Jenny Kearns wore black for 20 years as a symbol of her mourning. In 1937, she donated the building to the state to be used as the official residence of the governor. The mansion served well as the home of Utah's governors, but over time it became difficult and costly to maintain. A new, modern home in Federal Heights became the new executive residence, and the Kearns Mansion became home to the Utah Historical Society in 1957. Recognizing the historical value of the home, Governor and First Lady Matheson helped restore it as a governor's residence once again in 1977. Then in 1993, during Governor Leavitt's administration, a freshly cut Christmas tree caught on fire due to some faulty wiring, instantly enveloping the home in flames. The fire was a devastating loss. The heat caused the magnificent dome to peel off the ceiling, crashing to the stairs below. In all the chaos, only one person lost her head: the lovely Newell at the base of the stairs. When the dome plummeted to the ground, it knocked her head off and melted her branches. The Grand Hall was completely charred, and the surrounding rooms suffered from the extensive smoke damage. Many wondered whether the stately building would be torn down, just as many of her neighboring turn-of-the-century homes on South Temple had been, but the insurance adjusters, historians, and state officials agreed that the Kearns Mansion was worthy of a faithful historic restoration. The fire, rather than proving a death to the grand home, gave the building a new birth. With $7.8 million of insurance money, the past was brought back to the present. Wood that had been painted or bleached was restored to its original beauty. 90-year-old stenciled patterns returned to the walls and ceilings, and historic furnishings reclaimed their rightful places in the home. Today, it looks just as it did in 1902, minus the monkeys and the bowling alley. And my family's having a lot of fun living here. Thanks for joining me on this virtual tour of this state gem. We hope to see you soon.